Awesome. Welcome to the Pursuit of Truth podcast. We have Sam on. We've been friends with him for a while. Thanks for hopping on and talking to us, Sam.
Hey, yeah, thank y'all for having me on here. I'm
Yep.
excited.
Yeah, I think we've been friends for about five, maybe more than 5 years. I don't know if you remember, but
Yeah,
since
it's definitely
2020
before
at some
COVID.
point. Yeah. Yeah, 20, I think it was 2019 when I first met
Yeah, okay.
John, and then I met you after that, and then we stayed in contact, and then you've helped us out with the Move It program, which is something that me and my brothers do to help young men. And I've seen your heart for God through that. We've seen a lot of, good things come from that program, and so we wanted to have a
Mhm.
conversation with you. Just first off, wanted to start by asking you a little bit about your story, your testimony. Did you, grow up going to church? When did you get saved? Things like that.
Yeah. Um, yeah, I did. I grew up in a Christian family, ever since I was born. I grew up in a fairly large family. Um, and I guess the church that I grew up in was very conservative in a lot of ways. Um,
Hmm.
but also just unique compared to a lot of churches. As I got older, I realized that there was a lot of issues and things that kind of was disturbing. But I guess pertaining to my testimony, um, I didn't get saved till I was about 15 years old, um,
Okay.
and it was a lot because of how the salvation was taught at that church. They were so scared of like a movement of the 1, 2, 3, repeat after me. Now you're
Mhm.
saved. But
Yeah.
like there was really no heart decision behind it. They kind of flipped to the opposite end of the spectrum, and it was like you have to like strive to enter in. Like it's hard. Like
Mhm.
just because you say that I believe in Jesus and you want to believe in Jesus doesn't mean that you're saved. Which as I got older, I was like, it ends up being very contradictory to what the Bible teaches. But so I struggled with it. It was really hard. It was a struggle growing up. 12, 13, 14, because there's a lot of conviction, and then like you know, I would want to act on that conviction, but I was scared too because, I didn't want people to be like, well, you're not saved. You just did that or whatever.
Yeah.
So, anyways, I was 15. I was in like a men's prayer meeting one night, and I just came to the end of it. And I was like, God, I don't understand this. Like, I don't know. I don't understand all the details of this or what I have to do to be saved, but I know that I can't do it anymore. And like, I'm just giving it to you. And like, that's when I felt like I guess the most change in my life. It was like, a lot of things, desires and things change in a lot of ways. Um,
Nice.
but obviously, just because you get saved doesn't mean that your body is changed. You're still living the same flesh, you have the
Yeah.
same mind,
Still the same
same
person, pretty
problems.
much. Yeah.
Yeah. And so right around that same time when I was about 15, I guess this is probably where the main part of my testimony comes in that is well, as you're about 15 years old, like I'm very interested in, the people of the opposite sex. I'm interested in things like that. And, my parents are basically first generation Christians in a lot of ways. And, they didn't understand how to go through things and explain things. So I was kind of
Yeah.
out there just winging it on my own. And so about 15 years old, I had access to some electronics and kind of
Mhm.
got into porn through that way. And
Mhm.
throughout my life, I would say I was addicted to it around that time. I didn't have a lot of access to it, but every chance I did, I would, look it up. Um, and then we went to this conference called Cola Clash. I think
Mhm.
that's where you met John.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and they're really big on, being honest with people, making things right with your parents. So I just felt conviction. I was like, okay, I need to tell my parents that I have this problem. I was obviously scared, you know, 15-year-old kid. And I went and told them, and they were like, to my surprise, very receptive in a lot of ways. And to, my problems and whatnot, and were willing to work me through it. So I tried to, after that, mostly got a lot of blockers on things, limited access to it, and had a lot of victory in that time, through a little while. And then that same church that I was raised up in 2019, there's a lot of stuff went on, but basically my family got kicked out of the church for my sister marrying somebody that they didn't like. So
Dang.
so that actually sent me on like a huge spiral. Um,
Yeah.
I've been there since I was, 3 years old was my life. It was everything that I ever known. I
Yeah.
believed, I was taught. So it was like, is all of this a lie? Like, you know, is this who God is? Does he just, do all these things and
Mhm.
then just reject you because, one mistake you've made or, you did something that he doesn't like?
Yeah.
So it really was, even being 20 years old, like that's all I'd ever known. So it kind of started this journey. Well, started a relapse first. I will say that started a relapse of um, going back to porn as like a coping mechanism because that was where I found my comfort,
Mhm.
what I thought was, my comfort and contentment. It obviously wasn't that at all, but that's what my mind um, went back to from like when I was a kid. Like it was like, this is your comfort zone. This is where you go to find security. You get pleasure here. Um, so I started down that path again, and there's, I mean, a lot of despair, very shame, and even like depression at times.
Mhm.
And I went to Pensacola Christian College actually for a year. I decided to go there, and I met this guy named Chuck Craig. I think y'all know
Yeah.
who Chuck Craig is.
Yeah.
So he was like, "Hey man, come out to come out to lunch with me sometime." Like, he didn't know me from nothing. I was like, "Okay, sure." Like
Cool.
I'm a people guy. I like new people. So like,
Yeah.
sure. We went and sat down, and he just started just laying it on. Like, guys have this problem. A lot of guys have problems with porn and stuff. He's like, "Do you have problems with this?" And I was like, I mean, what am I gonna say now? I can't say no. Like, so
Yeah.
I was like, yeah. I mean, I have a serious issue with that actually right now. And so from that day on, I mean, he was on me every day, like everything you could ask out of, mentor accountability. And through that, I started finding a lot of ways to victory over certain things. But I think one of the main things that have propelled me to find victory in those areas is there's this man in the church, a different church that we went to after
Mhm.
um, the church I grew up in, and he taught on basically how God sees you all the time, and like when you mess up, a lot of times we feel this condemnation because we sin, but God's response to that is not you sinned, now you're going to punish. It's like, please come back to me and have
Mhm.
fellowship with me. Like, he has this, you're his like lost son. He's begging you to come back. So when I saw that and I realized, man, it doesn't matter what I do. Like I can go back to him right away every time. And he's gonna forgive me every time because he already did. It totally changed my perspective on, having victory over something. Like it's like God's not condemning me. Like that condemnation of like having the thought of God condemns me was
Mhm.
holding me in these chains, like in a way was holding me to this
Gotcha.
addiction,
Yeah.
this mindset. So that really helped a lot. But there's still a lot of neuropaths that have been created because of what
Mhm.
porn does to your brain. Like you can't
Yeah.
just it doesn't. It's not just like a I'm gonna pray and
Never
like there's
struggle
physical
again. Yeah.
things. Yeah, there's physical things that have
Yeah.
happened. So I think as of recent, as me and you were talking the other day, the most recent thing that has really like given me victory and just a lot of confidence is understanding that it's not porn is not really the problem. The
Mhm.
problem is I have discontentment in life. I have um disappointments in life, and
Mhm.
it's just a coping mechanism.
Yeah.
If it wasn't porn, it would be something else. Um, so I guess as of recent, what I've done is really work to strip the things out of my life that I go to. for contentment and be content with the basic things that God, has given me, like just people, for example, like being present with people, being present in a lot of different ways. And it brings life back to the simple things, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So, like when you're, scrolling on your phone 24/7, you literally lose like contact with the world,
Yeah.
and you're living in this fantasy. Even
Hmm.
just watching little videos, you're living in this fantasy world of like, it's not true. Like that's not where you're at.
Yeah.
It's this dopamine, I guess, hit. And something I heard recently was we drive for this dopamine hit all the time when we really need a serotonin like boost.
Mhm.
And I guess when you feel serotonin, it's something totally different. It's something that changes your life because it's a life changing experience, because that's we're created to feel that serotonin. And when you feel that, it's something you remember, right? It's the same thing with dopamine, but
Mhm.
dopamine is a short,
Yeah.
thing that you just want and you
Like
never get
reward.
enough of,
Yeah.
right? You got to keep going. So, um, just understanding those things, and then just
Hmm.
as of recently, I've read this book called Atomic Habits. I don't know if you've ever
Yeah.
heard of it or not.
Yeah. James
It's
Clear.
yeah, James Clear. He's not a Christian guy at all, but like the principles are still there. So I basically like it's basically been like totally revamping the way I live my life in
Nice.
reality. So
That's
as
good.
doing that, creating new habits, stacking habits, not just trying to, white knuckle it and do
Yeah.
whatever I can to make it happen. Because that's how I was raised. It was just like you pray hard enough, you read your Bible enough, and you just do the right thing, you'll be successful.
And you won't
And
struggle. Yeah.
right, you
But
won't
that's
struggle.
not good.
And it didn't work because
Yeah.
I was trapped in a struggle for like 10 years,
You try. Yeah.
So I was like, I
Gotcha.
gotta, find something else. So just totally revamping my life in a lot of ways. And I can't say that, obviously I don't have struggles, right? You're always going to have struggles, but the way
Yeah.
I react to those struggles um, lets you keep moving forward and building.
Hmm.
I guess it's not, you're
Yeah.
not just in this cycle of doing the same thing, going
Mhm.
back, thinking, oh, it's going to be better next time. It's not like, no,
Yeah.
I guess you see it coming and you're not reacting to it when it gets to you. It
Got
makes
it.
sense.
Yeah.
So being
That makes sense.
proactive with certain things, like, if I know that this triggers me, then, I'm going to sit down, I'm going to talk to myself out loud. I'm like, okay, this triggers you, and this is what you're going to do when this happens, you know, and just, it's a lot of work. I mean, it takes a lot of time. It's a lot of work,
Yeah.
but man, I mean, there's nothing like it. It's the peace and contentment and the joy. It's how God created us to be. He didn't create us to be chasing this
Yeah.
dopamine hit all the time. And
Hmm.
so I guess that's kind
That's
of my
good.
testimony up to
That's
today,
good,
really,
bro.
is, a lot of addiction, I guess probably more than I even would admit when I was younger in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
But, when you can admit that and see it and then really start putting a lot of work in, like, I
Yeah.
mean, over time, it's a slow process. It's not, quick
Sure.
fix. Yeah, I've like definitely been a very big, like I said, dopamine hit, like a quick fix kind of guy. Like, if I do
Mhm.
this, then this gonna be right after this from now on. And it's not reality.
Yeah.
It's
Not true.
fantasy.
Gotcha. It sounds like for you, the two big things were number one, like admitting that you had a problem,
Yeah,
doing that. You struggle with something, obviously, that's number one. And then number two was just changing your habits. And instead of just focusing on don't do this, focusing on, all right, what do I do? 'Cause
right.
I think that
That's
there's a
so
lot
true.
of I think there's a lot of young Christians that are taught don't do these things. All these things, don't do them. The world, like all that, don't do that. And then we're like, all
Right,
right, what do we do? Like,
right,
what are we supposed to do? I guess, praying some of that is good, but maybe we just don't understand fully or it's not explained as well as it could be. So we're kind of left with, all right, like what am I supposed to fill that void with? And
right,
so for me with different things, that's been helpful. Instead of having the mindset of not doing things, focusing on, all right, what do I add to my life? What kind of habits should I be taking on? And I think I saw something recently on addiction, and it was more so that people are addicted to something because of the connection there. It makes them feel alive. It's like
yeah,
the only thing that they're actually connected to. And so I think that thinking through like what are some healthy things, some meaningful things that you can pursue that you can feel connected to. God would be one, family, friends, sports, working out, building
Right.
a business or job, career. Like there's all these other meaningful things that you can work on to kind of fill that void, and then you don't want it as much. Like there's different things that I've struggled with here and there, but like the more that I work on myself and the more I pursue these meaningful goals, like I don't even care about a lot of this
Yeah.
like trivial stuff. I'm like I don't even want to do that anymore because I'm focused on these big things that really I see as, meaningful, something that really
Yeah.
drives me. So yeah, that
Yeah.
makes a
That's
lot of sense,
something
bro.
I wrote down the other day. I was just thinking was I don't desire God because I haven't built a lasting relationship with him and built memories with him, right? That send me back. Like, so when I'm in despair,
Yeah.
I think of the things I've already built in my past life. Right? It was a porn addiction. That's what I went to. When you
Mm.
build a relationship with God, right? And you have those moments of, blessings and,
Victory and blessing.
serotonin,
Yeah.
that's where you want to go when you have despair next time. It's not the porn. You have no desire for,
Yeah, that's
porn
good.
or whether it's sports. I mean, it's been sports in my life too. It's
Yeah.
sports has
Could be
probably
a lot of
almost been,
things.
yeah,
Yeah. That
exactly.
makes a lot of sense. That's good. I've started to notice that a little bit more with myself now that you say that, which is good. Like I feel like I haven't always been that way, but I think more recently with some difficult things that I've been through, things with business and other things, I'm starting to find myself trying to like be more grounded in Christ and grounded in
Mhm.
like being productive and moving in the right direction when it comes to some of the goals that I'm working on, as opposed to just like trying to get some hit from doing something that's sinful, if that makes sense. So
Yeah,
that's I think you're absolutely right. I've noticed the exact same thing. So cool. Any
that's good.
Steve, any thoughts that you had or anything you want to say?
Yeah, I mean, this is really good. I think one of the things that you were kind of talking about this, both of you, um, when it comes to like my own personal struggle in this area and viewing and all that kind of thing, what's helped me is to, I think, first of all, being honest, like, hey, this is really what the issue is. Like being honest, finding the coping mechanism or how it acts as a coping mechanism. So finding the root issue, like you're saying, but then realizing that
Mhm.
regardless of what the sin is, what we're specifically talking about this sin, obviously, it, I choose it because I want it. And I think that you have to have that balance between understanding the desire that God's placed there naturally, but then also understanding the line there that he has placed, and then realizing like, but I still choose a sin because I want to. And so
Hmm.
you were talking a little bit about desire, and I think what's helped me is realizing like it's not about not doing it. It's not about not sinning.
No,
It's
yeah,
not. And as Dave was saying, I think that many Christians are motivated to not sin and to only not sin. And that's what's driving them. But I really see that as a motivation of fear. And I think that fear is a
yeah,
terrible motivator. I think
Yeah.
that when you're motivated by fear, all you want to do is find peace. You're just
yep,
looking for, well, let me find peace. And then many times you revolt or sorry, what's the word? You end up back in that same sin
yeah,
because of
yeah,
there's peace there.
Relapse.
And I think that for me, what's changed in my life is being able to connect, okay, God, I want to do what you want me to do. So please help me set my heart on that. And then pursuing a relationship with him, finding the meaning, finding the purpose, finding all of that in him. And you were talking a little bit about the difference between serotonin and dopamine. And I'm no, um,
Scientist,
expert on it by
sure,
any means, but
psychologist.
obviously dopamine is kind of that quick hit. It's the way that we perceive pleasure, right? Whereas
right,
serotonin, it has much more to do with meaning and reward. And I
yeah,
think that that's
exactly,
like the
yeah,
most amount of meaning that you can experience is it comes from pain, and it comes from suffering, and comes from working on something, which really
right,
we could talk about purpose and all of that. But I think that for me, what's changed in my mindset is, okay, God, I want to do what's right. Right. I don't want to sin, but Lord, I need your help to place my heart on that. And then pursuing the relationship with him.
yeah,
And as Dave was saying, at a certain point, you really realize like, man, like I just don't want that sin anymore because I
yeah,
find so much more in God, which is an incredible thing. Because
it
like
is, yeah,
saying, it's like the Christian life now is not something that I have to see as like, okay, I can't do these things. And as long as I'm not doing these things, then I'm good. It's like, no, no, no. It's so much deeper than that.
yeah,
It's not about that at all, actually. It's about, God, I find life in you because you are life. God, you are light. You expose the areas of my weakness. And God, I can call on you and experience that life. And so to me, it's been a cool journey. And as I've heard from you now, and me and Dave have talked a little bit, but to me, that's the real, excuse me, that's the real way to conquer issues in your sin issues in your life, is not by looking at it as I can't do this, I'm afraid of doing this, and you know what would result from doing this. But now I'm just focused on doing what's right, and I'm
Yeah.
putting my heart on that. And God, would you help me? And again, it's choices. I can choose to do what's right in a situation, or I can choose to do what's wrong. But the
Yep.
only thing that's going to determine that is, God, I want to do what you want me to do, and so I'm going to surrender then to what I want. And so it's a beautiful thing, but it's good to hear that from you. So appreciate
Yeah.
that.
That's
Yeah.
good.
You said the one thing, and that reminded me. So I did like this little program a couple months ago called Unchained Leader. And they talked about the ones and like the, your thoughts and stuff. And he had like this little graph, and it's basically your the results you get from come from the actions that you make, right? And your actions come from feelings that you have. And your feelings come from your thoughts, right? Your thoughts. And your thoughts come from your beliefs. So, like you're saying, you want what you believe is right. So, if you believe that, porn is the answer for your problem, then that's why you want it. You're going to want it every time. So, like you're saying, changing that and understanding, like when I believe that I get the true, contentment from God, um, through, whatever it is, prayer, what you were just saying, basically, like
Yeah.
that's what you want.
Mhm.
So your those thoughts then create beliefs, and then the beliefs drive you to where you ultimately want to go. So
Exactly.
yeah, I think it's
That's
so good,
good.
and that's something I learned within this last year. So that's really
Yeah.
good.
I think a lot of times our desires are not the problem. We're just trying to meet those desires the completely wrong way. Like I just
Yeah,
looked this up real quick. So dopamine would equal drive, reward, motivation, think wanting, not happiness, chasing a business goal, checking your phone for notification. You know, at the bottom it says chasing, future focused, excitement, short spikes. I need that. There's nothing wrong with any of that. That's great
right.
when it's in the right use, when you're going about that the right way. That could be pursuing a walk with God, could be pursuing a relationship, building something, could be business, career. There's a lot of really good things that you can do when it comes to that. And then serotonin would be stability, contentment, well-being, think enough. That would be contentment, present focused, peace, long stability, feelings of I'm okay. So when it comes to dopamine and serotonin, dopamine builds the life, serotonin lets you live it. So
Yeah,
it's like that's all great. It's just thinking through, all right, how do I build a life that's meaningful and honors God, that's in line with his will for my life? And then
yeah,
also how do I do certain things that are going to help me to be at peace and be able to live this life
sure.
without, anxiety and some of that. So to me, I think that everyone wants the same thing, generally speaking. I've said this many times, but the issue is we all go about that a different way. So like some people are like,
Yeah,
I just want love, joy, peace. We want to feel safe. All these things are good, but people will go to drugs, alcohol, sex, lust. Though some people will go to church, some people will go to
yeah,
Christ for their needs. Some people will they'll go to therapy. Some people will just talk to people, right? There's all these different ways that people go about meeting these needs. So I think it's fundamentally understanding like what do I really need and want, and then thinking through what is the best way that I can actually go about fulfilling this need or even this desire. Like even like the desires that you're saying you're having in and of themselves, like the desire for sex and these things, like God designed that, but it has to be
right.
inside a boundary, right? Marriage, the Bible
Yep.
is very clear on that. So understanding that like in and of itself, the desires aren't the problem. It's how they manifest in your life and how and
Yeah.
what you do with those desires. So I think for young people, from my experience, this is something that's helped them to be able to think through how to just process this entire, landscape of desires and lust and all that.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
just
that's really good. It's more like if dopamine is not a bad thing. It's where you're getting your dopamine hit from. So, like
Exactly.
you were
Yeah,
saying, if you're getting, the correct dopamine hits from the right things, it's going to build into a
for sure.
serotonin life. Yeah, that's really good.
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
I was
For
just going
me,
to say,
yes,
Dave,
please go.
one thing
Go ahead.
that kind of we both have said too, and this is right on this, is basically the terminology of, or the word is channeling, right? So using basically those desires and learning how to channel your energy, learning how to channel your focus on the right things, as opposed to just giving into what your flesh wants. Giving, and it could be, we're talking about, porn here, but it could be anything. It could be anger, it could be bitterness, it could be anything. But learning to channel those emotions in the right direction. So I just thought of that because that's something that me and Dave talk to with the guys and stuff, is just learning, okay, I got to channel this. This isn't something that I need to
Yeah.
suppress. This isn't something I need to outright white knuckle. I'm going to get through this. No, you need to channel it, because it is energy. It is something that we can't control in and of ourselves. So
Yep. Can.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. And even like to me, I can't remember when, it was a while ago, I realized that dopamine has a lot to do with motivation. And it made sense to me because, like, to me, dopamine motivation, that's the sip of Red Bull. That's, hey, we just got the first down. That's the,
Yep.
you're so motivated, like, let's go after this thing. And so I think that you just have to put that to good use and try to seek that out in a way that's actually God honoring, in a way that's going to pursue a goal, worthy goal. So I think just so often we don't really understand what it is that we really want or how to actually go about getting what we want. And that's one of my goals, is to help people to want the right things and then also get what they want in life.
Yeah.
But most importantly is just making sure that you want the right things. I heard that that's the sign of true intelligence, is that you have what you want in life and you also want the right things.
Yeah.
So that's just a good reminder to me. I probably tell myself that almost every day, just making sure that I really desire the right things and that I'm actually doing things that are going to make it likely that I get what I want out of life. So just some really
Yeah.
good thoughts for young people, hopefully.
Yeah.
And
And
then
like,
yeah, Sam.
sorry, these things
You
I
go.
like you were just saying, like you said, I tell myself that every day. Like you have to.
Yeah.
Like if you don't tell your and remind yourself these things every day, like you're never gonna get, to your goal. There's like some statistic I saw that people that look at their goals, or the more often you look at your goals, the faster you achieve them. The people
Yeah.
that look at them once a year rarely ever achieve their life's goals. Once a month, the people that look at them, once a week, every day, like they're way ahead of everybody else, because
That's a
it's
good
these
point.
your big goals are just little things that you do throughout your life that end up getting
Habits.
you to right
Back
habits,
to
exactly,
what
to
you
where you
said
want to go.
about
So you
habits.
have to have it has to be every day. Just,
Yeah, no, that makes sense. It has to become part of your identity. And this is something that I'm working on now more, is just reading certain things twice a day that have to do with what I want in life and just making that top of mind, because then your subconscious takes over and really understands who you are, where you're trying to go. And so like I have certain things on like my screensaver on my phone. I have different pictures on my wall that really keep the
yeah,
goals and
that's
things I
good.
want in life top of mind. So it's really helped me to always kind of be in that state of like, all right, here's where my focus is, if that makes
Yeah,
sense.
yeah,
And then
that's good.
Sam, I was going to ask you more recently, what do you think God's been teaching you lately?
Um, I guess one of the biggest things right now that I've just kind of been learning is, this is going to sound like super progressive, like honestly, kind of, but like taking care of myself. Um, the way that it's just something with the way that I was raised was like, you just go, go, go and do everything you can do.
Hmm.
And then, you give to others, do whatever you can for others. And like, self has to be in the last spot. Like, sure, I
Hmm.
agree, yourself needs to be in the last spot, but it still has to have a spot.
That's true.
So
Yeah.
I guess it's what I realized too is I think, a lot of these addictions even came from this mentality of neglecting yourself.
Mm.
So what God's really been teaching me is that I have to take time for me to understand what he wants from me, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Well, that makes
So, I mean, like today, I was like kind of at a spot just earlier today. I was like, man, I'm totally lost. Like I'm like totally distracted, lost. And then I was like, okay, it's self date time. It's like I call it self date. So I like walked, prayed, journaled, and then like totally changes my view on life. So you have to take
Mhm.
time to take care of, your mental and spiritual health. It's not all about serving, serving,
Yeah.
serving. You're going to get burnt out at some point.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Yeah, I think that's really important. And I think there's a lot of people that maybe it's something that we have to learn as we mature, right? I think that we're all still, young guys. We have to kind of figure that out as we mature. And for
Yeah.
me, like I always look at it as like if I'm going to pour into the lives of others, I have to have a full cup myself.
Yeah.
And so for me, it might be a little bit more than most people, where I take a little bit more time to process things before
Yeah.
a conversation or before, Pursuit of Truth on Wednesdays, just because I need to be where I am supposed to be able to actually give these young people something from God, be able to help them out. So that's super important.
Yeah.
Good.
That's been big for me lately.
I really appreciate you said that because that's some of what I'm
Yeah.
going through too now. And I think some of it is I have a desire to do more and to influence more and to, I think, just do more for God, honestly.
Yeah.
But I think that what I'm finding is like I don't have the discipline I need right now to be able to manage everything. And so some of it is like I'm feeling like, okay, I have to, rearrange my life, but then certain things that should be a priority aren't a priority anymore because I'm living, well, this is next and then this is most urgent and then
Yep.
just going, going, going. And but something that I am learning is basically that thought that I need to be willing to pour into myself or have others pour into myself, or maybe I need to go and I need to read the Bible, spend an extended amount of time with God, or I need to listen to some sermons or whatever it is, just so that I can actually then pour into other people. And
Sure.
I think there's that aspect of, I can't give somebody something that isn't in me first, right? So I need
Yeah.
to be willing to be fed and be willing to take time, quiet time, be fed, get in the word, and then I can then share that with others. So I was just going to say, I really do appreciate you mentioning that. And that's something that God's working in my life on. So I have another, it's really two questions. It's a two-part question, but I'm going to kind of combine it into one. Um, I'm going to go back to your testimony. And I think that this is something that a lot of Christians struggle with. And I've had some talks with some Christians along these lines. When it comes to church hurt, what is your perspective on that? And maybe folks who are in an environment that they know isn't optimal, they know that there's a lot of issues with maybe their church environment or their Christian circle, and they're trying to figure out, okay, how do I handle this? What's your perspective on all of that? And also, like, what has God taught you personally going through what you went through at your church?
Yeah. Sure. Um, so as far as church goes, it's hard. That's the first thing I'll say is it's really hard because these are, especially when you're young, because these are the people that you saw as like the people that God used, right? Like in a
Hmm.
way, you see them as God. Sometimes
Yeah.
probably in a way that you shouldn't, but you do.
Hmm.
So I think the biggest thing with church hurt is understanding that people are not God. And just because somebody says God says something doesn't mean that's what God said. So, because
Yeah.
people are going, a lot of times people will base what they say off of an experience they had. And when you base things you say off experiences you had, you can be totally wrong because you could have been looking at the situation wrong. There's a lot of different scenarios they have. Like you have to understand like what is actual truth, right? Which is what y'all are talking about, the pursuit of truth. So I think the biggest thing with church thing is don't put faith in any man, woman.
Yeah.
Like I think a lot of times we want to think that pastors are like an Old Testament prophet or something, like, and God
Hmm.
only speaks to them. It's kind
Yeah.
of how it was kind of taught in a lot of ways. So understanding that they're not God, like we're all, what does he say? We're all priests and kings, right? Like in God. So God speaks to
Mhm.
you, just because your
Yeah.
pastor says something doesn't mean that you know, doesn't mean that it's what the Bible says. Cause they're a man, they can lead you wrong. They can make mistakes. Um, so I mean, that's probably the biggest thing with as far as I think a lot of people get problems with church hurt is they're just putting too much faith in people.
Sure.
And what's the second part of your question?
Yeah.
Just basically what God has taught you, and you kind
Oh,
of
taught me
answered
through
that.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, is I think the biggest lesson I learned through that, and actually has probably helped me a lot in life, is believe what you believe for yourself.
Sure.
Like
Yeah.
I would have told you that I believe what I believe for myself before, we got kicked out of this church and whatnot. But it proved that I didn't, when it happened to me because it sent my world in a spiral. There were things that were foundational, like salvation and things that, that I did have, believe for myself. But a lot of things with standards, music, I mean, alcohol, these were big things, then To me, they're not as big things anymore because I don't have enough time to focus on those things, when I'm
Mhm.
focusing on, what God's doing in my life. But
Yeah.
like, I might say something to somebody. If you're just repeating something that somebody else said, like I would say, oh, it's a sin to drink alcohol to somebody. And like, I'm not going on that. But
Hmm.
they would be like, oh, really? Because the Bible says this, this, and this. And then I'm like, oh, I don't know. It's just a sin. That's
Yeah.
all I know. So it's like super important for you to do the work. Don't be lazy. Do the
Mhm.
work
Yeah.
and figure out what you believe for yourself. It's a lot of
Yeah.
work. I mean, the Bible's a really big book and it covers about every aspect of life. So
That's
do
right.
the work and understand what you believe for yourself, or you're going to find yourself in, lost one day somewhere and you're not going to understand where you're at, what's going on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
That's
that's a dangerous spot to be.
yeah,
So,
that's good. One thing that I've
Good.
said before is that church is not Jesus. And a lot of times, like you were saying, we put people in church and kind of just the idea of church as like, well, this is a representation of Jesus. And honestly, I think that it should be to a certain extent, but it's not the same thing. And I think that the
yeah.
goal is okay, you're in a church, you're growing, you're all learning, you're all human. Yes, you're trying to get to a certain point in your sanctification. But remember that Jesus is the answer. Jesus is where you should be headed. So really, like you're saying, put your focus on Jesus, develop that relationship with Jesus, know what he says in his word. Um,
Yeah.
Hebrews 12 talks about, I have it right here, 12:15 says, looking diligently, lest any man fail of the grace of God. Everyone's going to fail you and
Yeah.
it's going to happen. And the admonition is
Yeah.
don't be bitter. Don't allow bitterness to rise up because we're all human, because there are going to be tendencies that we're going to fall to and people are going to lash out and all of that kind of thing. And
Yeah.
so the admonition is like, just because they've done wrong doesn't mean you have to do wrong, but you're not going to know that unless your sights are on Jesus and
Yeah.
keeping that relationship number one. And I
Yeah.
think, like you said, it was really good to study the scriptures and to know what God says and to not just say, hey, whatever they say is good, and we're all at this stage of life where we're trying to develop, this is who I am. God,
Right.
this is who you want me to be, this is what you want me to believe. And so it's much more prevalent for us. But I
Sure.
think that people, as they're going through this, need to remember that that really is the goal, is to not just get caught up in that mindset of like, okay, this is Jesus, this is Christianity. No,
Hmm.
not necessarily. We're all human. And so
Right.
I
Yeah.
appreciate that. It's a good take.
Yeah.
Good.
I think I heard all these, verses of, studying for yourself, understand, like I heard them all growing up. So like
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, okay, like sure, I
Sure.
get that.
All
I
right.
do that, sure. But then like look back now, I'm like, man, I was so lazy. I
Mm,
really wasn't serious about it. I had no idea what I actually believe for myself. So I think it's just like
exactly.
don't let yourself be deceived in thinking, I know all these things or I know all these things for myself because,
Hmm.
you know, I think you have to do a little bit of work and really be
Yeah.
intentional with it.
And if you can't explain it and you can't help somebody through it, then you probably don't actually believe it yourself. It's probably
Exactly.
somebody else's belief that you're projecting on them, which is not
Yeah.
ideal. I mean, if you want to be
No.
everything that God wants you to be and you want to actually lead a
Right.
wife someday and children and family, you got to really know what
Yeah.
God has for you and what you believe for you so you can actually pass that on. And
Yeah.
my desire too, Sam, would be for everyone to get to know Jesus. I'm not for everyone. No church is for everyone. You're
Sure.
not going to find one person or one church that's perfect, right? But Jesus
Right.
is for everyone. And
Yeah.
my desire is for all of us to fall in love with Jesus and his mission for our life and get to know him personally. And I think that that will solve a lot of our problems.
Yeah.
But that's really good. Thanks for that insight. I was going to ask you too now, what in your mind, like, why do you think young people should pursue God and walk with him?
Okay. Um, so I'm gonna go off my experience a little bit here.
Yeah, go for it.
Um, so when there were times in my life that, people had let me down, I questioned that, right?
Yeah.
Like like this sucks. So like
What's the
why
point?
should I follow you, God? Like this really sucks. But I think the other end of it was with some of the addictions and things that I had, show me real fast like where that leads to. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
like I guess it was more like when I recognized the absence of God, I recognized how enchained, trapped,
Exactly.
depressed, that life really was. I mean, what do you have to live for, right? So I
Yeah.
think it's one thing that drove me back to it. And then on the other end of that is not just, how despairing the world is. It's when I do what we've been talking about and I follow what God says, like there's peace, there's contentment, you know, and no, it's not always like I'm up on this mountain like praising Jesus all the time, but it's like on the bad days, I'm still content, you know. There's a difference that with being depressed on your bad day and being content on a bad day,
Yeah.
like totally changes your life. Like I think following Jesus is simple and fulfilling, and when you're not, you're over here, searching for things, and life gets really hectic, very depressing, and then that's where a lot of other health issues even come from for people, is just being incontent. So yeah.
Yeah. Gotcha. That makes sense. It sounds like you found contentment in Christ and, his mission for your life and different things that he wants you to do. That's good.
Yeah,
And
and I would say it took
Mhm. Yeah,
for I
what were you gonna
mean
say?
it took a while for me to really get, I was probably 23, before I realized I don't know what happens in my life, and like, I still deal with some addictions and things, but like I don't care. Like Jesus is for me. Like
Hmm.
there's no question that I'm going back at this point because I've seen what the other
Yeah.
end is, and I don't want to have nothing to do with that.
Yeah.
So yeah,
I mean, everyone has their own journey, their own process that they're going
sure.
through to be conformed to the image of Christ. It doesn't always look the same,
No,
but
it
it
doesn't.
sounds like for you, like you're making right decisions and you're growing and you're learning, going in the right direction. So
Yeah,
that's super
praise the Lord.
encouraging to hear that, it can happen to those out there that maybe are struggling with sexual addiction or something else, some other sin problem that you can have victory because of what
Yeah.
Christ did on the cross for us. We have hope in him. And I was gonna say specifically, let's say you were talking to a young man and you had 30 seconds to give him a piece of advice, anything in particular that you would say?
Yeah, I would probably first off tell him what I said earlier is no matter where you at or what you've done, Jesus is begging you to come back to him and ask for
Yeah,
forgiveness. Like he
that's good.
will forgive you, and you're never going to get anywhere in life if you're just ashamed of what you've done. Like
Yeah.
I don't care if you have an addiction every single day for hours.
Hmm.
That's not what it's not about. It's not that you can do something so bad that God's like, okay, I'm done with you. You know,
Yeah.
it's he's your father. You know what I'm saying? He's not gonna discard you. So I think that's probably one of the biggest things. And then the other thing is understand that you're in a battle, and when a
Hmm.
soldier is in war, he does whatever it takes to win.
Yeah.
He doesn't
Yeah.
care. Like if it's throwing his phone out the window, he throws his phone out the window.
Might get
If
scrappy.
it's
Yeah.
yeah, if it's, going to somewhere for an addiction and admitting that you have addiction for 6 months and going to rehab, whatever,
Whatever it
whatever it
takes.
is, he's willing to do it. So I think understanding that the devil is your enemy and he's doing whatever it takes to get you. So you have to be willing to do whatever it takes to have victory over it.
Got it. That's good. That's super good advice for sure. Steve, did you have anything to add?
Not really. I really appreciate that, Sam. You've been an encouragement. Obviously, we've known you for a few years, and just having this connection's been awesome. And
Yeah.
I'm happy you're able to jump on this podcast and have this discussion. We'll have to do it again. There's more topics we could probably delve
Oh
into
yeah.
and go deeper
Yeah.
with.
No,
You
I appreciate
yeah,
y'all because I hope this helps somebody else, but nonetheless, it helps me a lot. Just
absolutely,
going back over it. But yeah.
Yeah,
absolutely.
that's good. Yeah, sometimes the best way to help yourself is to help others and
Yeah.
to talk about some of the things you've been through, go over some of the wins and just kind
Yeah.
of look back on how far you've come. I know that's been big for me. So
Yeah.
right on. I was going to ask lastly, Sam, what do you want to be known for at the end of your life?
That's a good question. So that's kind of something that I have been working, I guess, towards.
Working on
Because it's kind of a packed question, right?
a
So, but
big
like,
question. Yeah.
yeah, it is a big question. So, like an overview, I think number one, somebody that was balanced. I think that's the biggest thing because I think a lot of everything that we've talked about today has to do with having balance in a lot of ways
Mhm.
in life. you know, extremes on things is just that's not who Jesus was. He's a very balanced man with things he did. I think being balanced and then like I told you earlier, being somebody that was willing to do whatever it took to see the kingdom of God, in my life and others' lives. And I think if at the end of my life I can say those two things, then I'll never stop growing, until that point. So
Yeah,
yeah.
that's super good. And those are always things that you can work on. I
Yeah.
think that you should have goals. You should have a lot of goals, but the things at the top of that pyramid, so to speak, those should be things that you can always do for the rest of your
Yeah.
life. Like have a
Right.
meaningful marriage,
Yep.
impact as many people as I can for Christ. Like, you can always work on that.
Yeah.
You're always going to be able to get meaning from the process and who you become on that journey. So that's super good,
Yeah.
bro.
That's good. I
Sounds
appreciate
good.
it.
Anything else, guys?
I think
No?
I'm good.
All right.
I think
Awesome.
that's I,
Sounds
I
good.
think that's every ounce of wisdom or
That's all
wisdom
you
that I have
got.
in my body.
That's funny.
Hey, that's good. We'll take it. It was good. This was
Mhm.
a good conversation. And we got to pray for one another. We'll keep you in our prayers, Sam.
Yeah.
And we'll
Same.
we'll see you definitely this summer for Move It. That'd be something
Heck
that
yeah.
maybe people that are watching, you could pray for us as we do the Move It program for young men, that we can help them spiritually, help them define their purpose, get some direction in life, be able to conquer sin and be men of victory. So keep
Yeah.
us in our prayers, those that are listening. All right, sounds good,
Heck yeah.
guys. Have a
Thank
good
y'all.
rest of your day.
All right.
Yeah,
Take
you
care.
too.
All right,
Bye.
bye.